Friends, I just pressed the Let's Go Live button. So let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet before we go ahead and get started. Stagnant Heat could be my nickname. It's a good one. It could be like a band name. Are we live? Is it working? I think the tubes are working. So let's go ahead and get started. We've got some serious business today. And let's get to it, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live, the show that spotlights misconduct involving police, prosecutors, and politicians. My name is Robert Gouveia. I'm a criminal defense attorney, and today we are talking about Donald Trump's imminent indictment. We heard this was breaking on the day. We're going to go through it. I've been scrambling around, clipping from here and there, and trying to figure out exactly what is going on, when this is going to be happening, and what the timeline looks like. And so we'll go through some of that. I, of course, have Trump's announcement. He dropped this fresh on a Tuesday morning. And so we'll go through that in detail. He gives us a little bit of a play-by-play about what happened over the weekend. And then he dropped the news today. Now, he gets 4 days to respond on this thing. And so I went over, we'll check in with Andrew Weismann. You remember him? He used to be a Trump prosecutor. And these guys are very obsessed with this case. So we'll see what he said about it. But then we'll turn our attention to the Justice Manual, because this gives us the rules exactly that the government has to follow, the Department of Justice, at the DOJ website. And so we'll see what they are going to be doing. We have some rumors coming out from CNN that the Special Counsel reached out to Arizona's former governor, Doug Doocey. We're asking ourselves about, what are these charges going to be? Are they going to charge him with forgery, fraud, falsification of official documents, something related to the false slate of electors? Or is this going to be something about, fomenting a conspiracy, an insurrection, physical violence? Is it going to be a mixture of the two? What are the charges going to look like? And who is involved? Are they going to go just after Trump or other people in the orbit? So we're asking ourselves about Rudy Giuliani and, of course, about the timing on this thing. Every time there's about to be a whistleblower proceeding with the Biden crime family, lo and behold, something happens about Trump that kind of sweeps in here and captures a lot of the air and the oxygen out of the room. So we'll go through that. There's going to be a lot of footlong jokes here today, and it's not my fault, all right? This is CNN's fault. They went out and they followed Jack Smith to Subway, and apparently he got a footlong over there. And so they started one of their segments marveling about what this means for the case. And I'm not even kidding about that. All right. So we're going to have a Jack Smith lunch play-by-play analysis because CNN says Jack Smith can't resist a footlong. Their words. All right. So we'll get ready for that one. Then we've got Congress demanding some action on this. In particular, Matt Gaetz says it might be time to defund the special counsel. Matt Gaetz saying, time's up already for these guys. So we'll see what he said. We've got a clip of him. Marjorie Taylor came out. We have a content warning on her statement because she says this is BS, and she uses that word. And then Kevin McCarthy also weighed in on the pending Trump indictment. So we'll go through all of that. We also have been talking about this theory for years now, ever since January 6th, about using the Insurrection Clause to keep Trump off of the ballots or out of the election. And we were always wondering, how are they going to start to implement this? What is going to be the jumping off point? We were waiting for the January 6th Select Committee to do something, pass a resolution or do something at the conclusion of their proceedings, and they never really did anything. And we were waiting for some other bill or something, but then the Republicans took over the House of Representatives, and so it kind of took that away. So we got questions. How are they going to implement this thing? But now that Trump going to be indicted, that might be the keystone. That might be the moment in time where they can say, well, he's been charged now. He hasn't been convicted, but he has been charged, and now it's questionable. And since it's questionable, we got to keep him off the ballots until it's not questionable. And once it's resolved, then we can put him back on the ballots, and that's going to be after the election, okay? So we're just waiting for that to happen. But we also here, remember, have talked about what they're trying to do in Nevada and other places. They want, even without a conviction at all, they're saying that they can get Trump kicked off the ballot just now. And we read through a letter, I think a couple weeks ago, about this guy. We'll do just a quick refresher because this is pertinent. They have been trying to disqualify him well before he was even indicted. All right. So now this is going to amplify times 10. So this guy's John Bonifaz, and he says that the Insurrection Clause makes it so the secretaries of state and the attorneys generals and the different state people in executive positions can just disqualify an insurrectionist from the ballot. Vivek had a great comment on this, and so we'll spend a little time hearing from him on this insurrection strategy. I think he's dead on the money with it, and honestly, he has probably the best strategy of all the candidates in terms of what he's going to do to deal with the FBI, at least in my humble opinion. You know how much we love the FBI here. We also have DeSantis. He had a comment, actually 2 comments on this. We'll play. Well, I'll let you be the judge of, what he says. And then Nikki Haley was also on with Fox News, and she kind of wants to move on past this thing. And so we're starting to see what the other GOP candidates are saying in response to this. And then finally, we are going to check out what happened in Florida, what's going on with this classified documents case. And honestly, at this moment, I'm a little bit irritated that we don't have more on this. In fact, we didn't have anything right before I started press the Let's Go Live button. Do we have any updates here today on this one? No. See? They had a court hearing, and we don't even have any updates. All right. So that's why we're going to save that segment for the end, and we'll see. We'll come back, see if maybe there is an updated order. But there was a big proceeding today where they were debating over the trial date. Is it going to happen in December? Is it going to happen in January? Is it going to happen after 2024 elections? We don't know. So we'll see if there's an update on it. But even if there's not, I still have some other news on this because there was there were reporters there, and they were reporting on what happened, and we can see what the judge said. So, as you can see, we have a lot to get to, my friends, and if you would love to join us, we'd love to have you over at our community, watchingthewatchers.locals.com, or if you join as a member. We covered a couple of other stories this morning. We asked ourselves, is Michelle Obama running for president? What? Is she running? We found this weird Twitter account where it was created in March of this year. It only has 2 followers. It's called the Obama Office, and we don't know what that's all about. So is Michelle running? We had some questions. We talked about that and looked at the public markets. And, actually, it might be a good investment if she starts making some murmurings. If she hits on this market, might be able to, make some money, not financial advice. But we talked about that. We also have this Fauci referral. Rand Paul's referring Fauci over to the DOJ. I'm sure they'll flush it right down the toilet, but it's an interesting case. I mean, it shows that Fauci, as we all know, is a giant liar. And so that story will, of course, be coming out soon as well. And my friends, I've got some awesome news. I'm super excited about this, but our new website is now functional, and our new website actually has some features, some bells and whistles. And so if you go over to robertgovea.com, you can actually sign up there. And for some reason, I didn't open it up on the screen here like a big doofus, so I could just show you. But if you go over there, then you'll be able to see that this is what it looks like. And you can sign up for our daily newsletter, and you'll get a summary of the show. You'll get some links to the segments, and you'll also get access to the mind map. So you can go right on over to the website, robertgovea.com, sign up here, click here. It will give you access to the mind map. Once you get access to the mind map, then there's going to be a video tutorial. So you'll be able to go through the video tutorial, learn how to use the mind map, and then you can literally access the same mind map that we are looking at right now. So you can actually just go over there and browse around literally this exact mind map. So it's pretty cool, and we'd love it if you joined up at our newsletter, robertgovea.com. Would be very neat to have you join up. And I think it's going to be important. Oh, I forgot to mention, there's also reports over there. So if you're on the website and you click this reports button, so you can see here, we've got a featured report. That was yesterday's show. And then we've got all these different reports now. So you can, if you don't, so let's say you can't watch the full video, you can just click read more. And this is the video, right? So James Comer sends a letter. So we talked about that one. But then you can actually read it. Okay, so this is a summary of the video. It's in my words. It's just giving you a briefing, essentially a report of what this whole video says. So if you don't want to watch the full video, you can just read it, come and get your data there. And so it's pretty neat. The articles are pretty good. And so if you want to check it out, you can get your reports there and poke around and sign up. And of course, become a member over on Locals. And this is, 0.1 of our website. We've got big plans for it, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So thanks for signing up, and thanks for your feedback on it. If you've got any feedback for us, we would love to hear it. And so you can email us over there. So robertgovea.com. We'd love to see you. And of course, over there, you're going to see a lot of plugs for our amazing community, watchingthewatchers.locals.com, and our memberships over on YouTube. We love to have you. We do members-only morning streams, and we did one this morning where we talked about the other fun stuff. And so come and join us at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Now, before we get into this, let's talk about our friends at Field of Greens, because we all would like to lose those leftover pandemic pounds, but we're all sick of the ads for weight loss pills and fad diets. I understand. We've all been there. We've all done that. It's frustrating, and we know they just don't work. But you know what does? Eating healthy servings of fruits and vegetables every day. 5 of them would even be better than 1. You do that, and the weight would probably just fall right off. But look, vegetables, I know, not a fan, and fruits, a lot of work. Instead of worrying about all of that, let's just talk about Field of Greens, because Field of Greens is a science-backed formula. Very specific fruits and vegetables that you're not going to find in any other product. At Field of Greens is the only brand backed by a better health promise. You're going to look and feel healthier fast, but the greater proof is going to come at your next checkup when your doctor takes one look at you and says, "Whoa, baby, you are looking good. You've lost weight." You're going to know what you did. fieldofgreens.com, my friends. And don't forget, you can save 15% off with code Robert when you check out. The vegetables want to be eaten. You're going to be bursting with green energy, the good kind, thanks to our friends at fieldofgreens.com. All right, so let's get into the serious business on the day. And we have a lot to attend to, starting with Donald Trump. Donald Trump announces he's being indicted. We've long expected this day to come, but it will be arriving very soon. And we've been asking ourselves about the timing on this thing. We've got an election coming up. We've already got 2 other indictments. We expect a 4th indictment to come out of Georgia. We're trying to piece together what this covers. What is the scope of the criminality? What different buckets did Jack Smith uncover? And what is the nature of the charges that we're going to see in the indictment? So we're going to go through Trump's announcement. We are going to also check in with Andrew Weismann, a former Trump prosecutor, see what CNN had to say about it. And then they were very excited about this footlong that Jack Smith was indulging in this afternoon, walking around with his sandwich. And we'll go through that story, so make sure you stick around for that. But first, this is what Trump posted over on Truth Social. He said, a statement by Donald Trump, 45th president of the United States. He writes, "Wow. On Sunday night, while I was with my family, having just arrived from Turning Point event in Florida, where I won the straw poll against all other Republican candidates with 85.7%, by the way, with all polls showing me leading in the Republican primary by very substantial numbers, almost everyone predicting that I will be the Republican nominee for president. And as I am leading Democrat Joe Biden in the polls by a lot, horrifying news for our country was given to me by my attorneys." Deranged Jack Smith, the prosecutor with Joe Biden's DOJ, sent a letter. Again, it was a Sunday night, stating that I am a target of the January 6th grand jury investigation and giving me a very short 4 days to report to the grand jury, which almost always means an arrest and indictment. So now, Joe Biden's Attorney General, Merrick Garland, who I turned down for the United States Supreme Court in retrospect, based on his corrupt and unethical actions, a very wise decision, together with Joe Biden's Department of Injustice, have effectively issued a 3rd indictment and arrest of Joe Biden's #1 political opponent, who is largely dominating him in the race for the presidency. Nothing like this has ever happened in our country before, or even close. They illegally spied on my campaign, attacked me with a totally fake dossier that was funded by Hillary Clinton's campaign and the DNC. They impeached me twice. I won. They failed on the Mueller witch hunt, no collusion. They failed on the Russia hoax, the 51, quote, intelligence agents fraud, the FBI Twitter files, the DOJ Facebook censorship, and every other scam imaginable. But on top of all that, they have now effectively indicted me 3 times. The DOJ staffed and runs the DA's office in Manhattan, with a probable 4th indictment coming from Atlanta, where the DOJ are in strict and possibly illegal coordination with the district attorney, Fannie, the biggest Fannie in all of Georgia Willis, whose record on murder and other violent crime is abysmal. This witch hunt is all about election interference and a complete and total political weaponization of law enforcement. It is a very sad and dark period for our nation. Donald Trump. And this is an interesting statement. This matters big time because he is the leading presidential candidate. And it is an unprecedented situation where the current president is prosecuting his opponent. By any stretch, no matter, even if you're a lefty Democrat, you can't deny that fact. He is far and away the leading contender, meaning a big significant portion of America thinks he is the next legitimate president and the best person to do the job. So even if they hate the man, they've got to at least, I would imagine, if they're in any way, shape, and form grounded to reality, at least recognize that this is a big deal for a huge portion of this country. And that may be why they're doing this. They want to rattle something loose, cause something else to happen so that they can jump on it or create it and then exploit it for their own ends. So we're always watching them for cause and effect. They indict, they know some things are going to happen. They're going to capitalize on those things that are happening. And we know they create crimes even when there are none. So this is Trump's statement. Now, we're asking ourselves, what does this mean exactly? Andrew Weismann, who is a former Trump prosecutor who, strangely has a lot of inside knowledge about what's going on. These people get leaks from the media, from Jack Smith's team. I don't know how they get their information, but here's what he says. Here's what this means. Trump was given an invitation to testify before the grand jury. He says he won't, but he must do so within 4 days. And this is the opportunity for Trump to present, his exculpatory evidence or anything that he thinks would exonerate him. They're giving him only 4 days. We're going to talk about that in a minute at the Justice Manual. No indictment before Friday. He says he's going to be indicted on 1/6 related charges. And so I certainly agree with that. Now, he is a former prosecutor, and this is the section on notification of targets. So if you go over to the DOJ's website, you'll find that they have their instructions about how this stuff works. When a grand jury is convened, we know what the powers of a grand jury are. We know what the advice is to the rights of grand jury witnesses, how to subpoena targets, and so on. Well, Trump just got a notification. So we can go to this section, 9-11.153. Here's what they say. When a target, I just zoomed in so we could read it, and then I lost track of where we were. So let's try that again. Boom. When a target is not called to testify pursuant to another provision and does not request to testify on his or her own motion, so meaning Trump has not reached out to them, the prosecutor, this is the manual to the attorneys, the prosecutor in appropriate cases is encouraged to notify such a person a reasonable time before seeking an indictment in order to afford him or her an opportunity to testify before the grand jury. All right. So now we're asking ourselves, is that a reasonable time? Like 4 days? You got 4 days to show up and testify, drop everything, Trumpy. Otherwise, you're going to be indicted. We're going to lock you up. So prosecutors are encouraged to give them a reasonable time, 4 days or else. Notification would not be appropriate in routine clear cases or when such action might jeopardize the investigation or prosecution because of the likelihood of flight, destruction, fabrication of evidence, endangerment of other witnesses, undue delay that would otherwise be inconsistent with the ends of justice. So that might be their justification. We're going to give Trump just a very short amount of time to come in here and respond to this so that he doesn't wreck the case. And there's virtually zero possibility that Trump comes in and testifies. He's going to be invoking his right to remain silent all the way through this, maybe up until the trial, maybe through the trial. We don't know. But this is the reasonable amount of time. And on this channel, we've been concerned that the DOJ was going to make these arguments, like Trump might flee the country, like Trump might destroy evidence, or he might endanger witnesses, put pressure on them. And that is going to justify his being held in confinement. So that's what the DOJ manual says. Now we're asking ourselves, who in particular is involved in this case? What witnesses are around? We know that in the Florida case, the classified documents saga, they subpoenaed throngs of people all throughout Mar-a-Lago and in other parts of the country. The investigation went over to Bedminster, New Jersey, and they've got thousands of hours or hundreds of hours of footage, thousands of documents, terabytes of data. But in this other case, this is about January 6th, and we've got different possibilities. False slate of electors. We've got, remember in the Proud Boys trial and the Oath Keepers trial, some of the defendants were pointing their fingers at Donald Trump and saying, hey, we were just doing what he said. They were trying to save themselves at the expense of Trump. Every single one of those lines of testimony or opening or closing statements was chronicled by the Department of Justice, obviously, going in a big fat dossier so that they could use it against Trump. Say all of these people are pointing the finger at you. They're saying that they did these violent things because of you. Therefore, this is a conspiracy to, a seditious conspiracy, the same thing that Stuart Rhodes got indicted for and is going to prison for 18 years for. They're going to say he's the leader of that. So who's involved in that case? Could it be Doug Doocey? Could it be his own lawyers? Here's what CNN says.
This is first on CNN, but we have now learned that Jack Smith's team has reached out to the former Arizona governor, Doug Doocey, who we know Trump pressured him to overturn the election. The Washington Post had reported recently that Doocey had been saying privately he was kind of surprised that Jack Smith's team had not reached out to him. I was told by a source that they had contacted him, and a spokesman for Doocey confirmed and said to me, yes, he's been contacted, he's been responsive, and just as he's done since the election, he will do the right thing. I mean, this is really notable.
Just to clarify, when you say Jack Smith's office has reached out to him, you're not talking about sending a letter. You're talking about as a potential witness.
This would be as a potential witness. Trump tried to pressure Doocey when he was the governor of Arizona, obviously a state that Trump lost narrowly, to overturn the election results. And Doocey rejected that. He said he did not have the authority to do that. When he was certifying Joe Biden's win, his phone rang and it played Hail to the Chief. It was Trump calling him, and he silenced it and continued to certify the election.
I remember that.
But it is notable because that's another state official, a governor in one of the most critical states that Trump lost, that he was probably the most angry about, I think our sources would say. And Jack Smith's team has now reached out to Governor Doocey.
So we'll see if Doocey is working with Jack Smith and what he said. We know people like Rudy Giuliani also testified. We know that they have broken attorney-client privilege. A number of people on Trump's team, his lawyers, his vice president, were all out testifying at the grand jury. We don't know exactly what they said or whether their testimony was helpful or harmful to Donald Trump, but we now know Doocey was somebody who was involved as well. We're also asking ourselves, what about Rudy Giuliani? We remember previously here that we had learned that he testified for about 8 hours. Paula Reed over from CNN again. They get a lot of leaks here. So Rudy says that Rudy has not received a target letter in the 1-6 probe. We're asking about Sidney Powell as well and some of the people who were involved in that initial response team. His lawyer tells me. As CNN previously reported, Rudy did a voluntary interview with special counsel investigators several weeks back. His lawyer does not expect him to be charged. That's interesting. Why is that? Curious. So we now know that they are moving forward. Donald Trump is confirming that himself. We'll see when the charges ultimately drop, but we could expect it after Friday. Now, there are very curious questions about the timing on this thing. We know that the Biden crime family is going to be exposed tomorrow by two very competent, credible whistleblowers, Mr. Gary Shapley and Mr. X, who's going to be revealing his identity for the first time tomorrow in Congress at the Oversight Committee with James Comer and others. And so it's very interesting. Every time this happens, when the FBI was going to bring over the FD 1023 form, there was something else. There's always something that goes on. It's always a big surprise. And so Fox News caught that as well. They're previewing what's happening tomorrow, hoping that what happens tomorrow is overshadowed by today.
Records is they're going to do just that and try to delay it until past November of next year. So what we did is, from some of their known associates, we subpoenaed those bank records, and we got those, and we have found 170 suspicious activity reports that have been generated by Biden family activity, banking activity.
Before I let you go, Congressman Fallon, after what happened today with former President Trump, and an potentially impending third indictment against him, what about the timing? Everybody knew you were going to do this hearing tomorrow. Your quick thoughts.
It's awfully suspicious. All we're going to do, Harris, that I can promise you, is we're going to follow the evidence, and we're just out for justice. And the Bidens have been, stonewalling us at every turn, and it's very unfortunate.
Yeah. So there's really nothing the left can do on the other side, whether it's going after Trump or anything else, that's going to stop you getting to the truth at this point, with now 3 whistleblowers. Great to see you. Representative Fallon, we'll see you at work tomorrow during that hearing.
We will watch that hearing tomorrow, or at least hit the recap on that when it does come out. But very interesting timing indeed. So this is serious business, and this is troubling. Every time that we talk about this, it's always almost a surreal experience to think about a former president who's the current leading contender being prosecuted in a criminal court system in D.C. by Joe Biden's Justice Department in the middle of an election season. It's just a bizarre thing, but it is here, and it is something we've been expecting for a long time, and the indictment will ultimately come. We'll be able to go through it in full detail and break down exactly what's happening like normal, rational people. But some people are having an interesting, almost experience, kind of like a weird, I don't want to put any adjectives on it, but they're indulging or enjoying Jack Smith indulging in footlongs. And this is what CNN was talking about after news of the indictment broke.
Jack Smith can't resist a $5 footlong. That's according to what we see right there. New and exclusive CNN video of the special counsel at Subway, declining, though, to respond to reporters' questions about today's big news. A target letter sent to the former president of the United States. CNN's Evan Perez was there trying to track down the special.
What? $5 footlong? Now, did you hear this music too? Listen to this music. It's like this crescendo. Whoa, we have prosecuted Trump.
Jack Smith can't resist a $5 footlong. That's according to what we see right there. New and exclusive CNN video of the special counsel at Subway, declining, though, to respond to reporters' questions about today's big news. A target letter sent to the former president of the United States. CNN's Evan Perez was there trying to track down the special.
All right, so he's getting himself a fake sandwich, just like his fake prosecution. And there was some serious business on this one. I mean, they discuss this as though it's a really consequential thing. It's hilarious. This came over from Alex Christie on Twitter. He says, is it CNN or TMZ? This woman on CNN informs us that Jack Smith was spotted today going to Subway for lunch, picking up a sandwich, and leaving, not saying a word. We got another whole segment on this on CNN. Watch.
Indict Donald Trump. Of course, on the special counsel's side, that's the Justice Department and its appointee, Jack Smith. Jack Smith is tight-lipped. He was spotted today by CNN going to Subway for lunch, picking up a sandwich, leaving, and not saying a word. So no comment from the special counsel's office on whether they plan to indict Donald Trump and when that is potentially going to happen for the second time for a federal case.
All right, I was waiting for some of the comments on that one. Now, here's another clip. Okay, they take this further. It wasn't just that one woman. It's also this guy on CNN says Jack Smith going to Subway is a message to Donald Trump. Jack Smith with no words and a simple $5 sub in his hand saying, "I'm not going anywhere, Trump. I'm not going anywhere." Dana Bash says the imagery was intentional and it spoke volumes to his heroism in saving America. Listen to these weirdos.
Wow. And just one last point. Jack Smith, remember when the classified documents target letter, when Trump announced that, there was a lot of commentary. It was Jack Smith making a mistake here. Is he leaving this all to Donald Trump? And then they released the indictment and we all said, wow. Wow. We read it. We saw the documentation. We saw the level of detail. Jack Smith going to Subway today is a message to Donald Trump.
Whoa.
Donald Trump tries to intimidate people. He tries to bully people. He tries to scare you away. That was Jack Smith with no words and a simple $5 sub in his hand saying, "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere."
Yeah, the imagery was intentional and spoke volumes.
It really
Definitely.
is.
Yeah, it really is intentional.
Making a
Oh man, I thought that this whole prosecution was a total joke, but now that Jack Smith got a sandwich, I'm a little concerned about it now. Now I'm nervous. So that message, I'm shook. I'm quivering in my boots. So, all right, that's what's going on CNN, okay? And they're serious about this. Listen to him.
Documentation, we saw the level of detail. Jack Smith going to Subway today is a message to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Donald Trump tries to intimidate people. He tries to bully people. He tries to scare you away. That was Jack Smith with no words and a simple $5 sub in his hand saying, "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere."
Yeah, the imagery was intentional and spoke volumes.
It really is. And
All right, those are the goofballs over there on CNN.
of course, on the special counsel side.
Yeah, they're just going to keep talking about it, no doubt about it. So, all right, Jack Smith can't resist a footlong. CNN said it, not me. Now, this is going to continue on, and we'll continue to cover, my friends. Thank you for subscribing wherever it is you're watching this. Thank you for going to robertgovea.com, signing up for our newsletter so you can get access to this mind map and poke around as this case develops, and we'll see you on the next one. All right, fake sandwiches for fake prosecutions, but we also have more on this, and let's get this screen fixed. What's going on here? This is, come on, this is just loaded lazily. Very inappropriate. And we've got business to attend to. All right, that was yesterday's show. There we go. This is our next segment. And they're asking what we should be doing about this. Congress now demanding action after Jack Smith is apparently indicting Donald Trump for the second time. What can be done about it? We know the Biden DOJ has been purely weaponized against their political opponents. But does Congress have any powers back? Can they do anything about this? Matt Gaetz says, yeah, there is. We can do something about it, including defunding Jack Smith, the special counsel particularly. Now, we've seen this before with Matt Gaetz and other Congress people who've tried to defund particular people, and there's debates about whether they can do that and what the scope of that power is. But Marjorie Taylor Greene is another person who said that through the Appropriations Committee, through the power of the purse, they can start to withdraw some of that money from the DOJ, from the FBI, from this weaponized agency and institution. And Kevin McCarthy is going to tell us what he thinks about the new Trump indictment. But this is Matt Gaetz reacting to the Trump indictment and responding at the end of this clip with what his plan is moving forward, saying he in particular is introducing legislation into Congress to start this process now.
You would not see this continued pattern of indictment over indictment over indictment if they thought they had neutralized Trump. Is there a single American who believes that Donald Trump would be getting indicted over these things if he were not running for president again and if he were not the leading contender for president again? And while this isn't a political show, you all can search the polling and see how President Trump is doing in the Republican field and in the general election. Again, not here to break that down. It's relevant to us insofar as it informs the decision of a weaponized government to target him, which is exactly the allegation that President Trump makes in his statement. Another important thing. The House of Representatives needs to take action to defund this special counsel investigation immediately.
Right on.
We do not need to wait for the appropriations process. Don't have to wait for the Holman rule or some rider. They are attacking our democracy and engaging in election interference right now. And if the United States Congress does not have the capability to stop that election interference, well, then what is all the flowery oratory about preserving the republic?
They don't care
about
that.
We have to operationalize that.
It's their version of the republic.
And so in the coming hours, the coming days, I will be introducing legislation under my name in the House of Representatives as a freestanding bill to defund the Jack Smith investigation. And one reason why
we'll be covering
is the election interference feature. Another reason why, the lack of transparency. I have sent correspondence to the Attorney General. I just want to know who's on the Jack Smith team. You remember how the understanding of the composition of the Mueller team informed on how we saw a lot of that evidence and a lot of that legal analysis? They had a team of vicious Democrats. And if you look at Jack Smith and his team, you ought to be able to evaluate where they've made political donations.
Right, and they don't get the benefit of the doubt. We don't just presume that they cobbled together a team of very diverse, 4 Republicans, 4 Democrats, 4 people who voted for Trump, 4 people who didn't vote for Trump, cobbling together this team of above board, ethical government prosecutors who are doing their due diligence and making sure this is not being weaponized. Nobody believes that for a second. But the fact that we can't inquire or ask those questions, who are these people? Where do they come from? What amount of money is being expended where, and really, go through this with a fine-tooth comb, then we can't have faith in the conclusion, in the outcome of that team.
Where they've been political appointees. What their connections are to people who have skin in the game to preserve their power in Washington, D.C. So because the Department of Justice has been non-responsive on my requests for reasonable information that a member of the Judiciary Committee is absolutely entitled to, because this is election interference, because it is not predicated on what we all saw as a nation. President Trump said we have to stop sending money to this. The power of the purse is not some intermittent thing that we wield every year and a half or every fiscal cycle. It's something that we have to wield day in and day out to achieve victory for our people and to stop this. And by the way, I'm under no illusions about Joe Biden signing such a legislative device into law. I know that Chuck Schumer would never bring such a thing up, but you deserve to know where your members of Congress are counted. Will they co-sponsor my legislation? I certainly hope they will. And when we get to the must-pass legislation, because look, even if Jack Smith indicts Trump 10 minutes from now, you're looking at legal process that is extended out a great deal. We have to make sure that in this appropriations process, we do not continue to fund a government that has turned against the very nature of elections and free choice by the vote.
If there is a silver lining in this whole thing, is that the Biden DOJ cabal will slowly be exposed in this process. A lot of eyeballs are going to come down upon this. A lot of people who had the default belief that maybe you could trust the justice system or that they were operating for the greater good of America or something like that, a lot of them are going to wake up and see. And as Matt Gaetz talks about here, we're going to also see a lot from our elected leaders and our so-called, politicians who are in the Republican Party and where they stand on a lot of this, because people are going to start saying enough Trump stuff, enough DOJ stuff. It's irrelevant. It's not a national issue. It's only Trump's problem. In other words, it's not the country's problem. It's not a weaponized DOJ. It's just Trump crying wolf complaining about nonsense. So when Matt Gaetz introduces this, we'll start to see where are other people going to go and how is it going to politically cause people to separate or align. It's going to be very interesting to see. And so Matt Gaetz is one of the people who is doing something about it. We'll see if it leads to anything. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene also had some commentary on this. She posted this on her Twitter account. She says, Jack Smith has weaponized the federal government against Trump in a complete lie about J6 to cover up the crimes of Joe and Hunter Biden and their entire criminal family. The Democrats want to arrest every one of their political opponents. It's hard to recognize our countries anymore. And there's a content warning coming up on this one. So earmuffs for the little ones. Earmuffs.
Former President Trump says he received a letter from Jack Smith saying he's a target of a grand jury investigation of January 6th. Do you have a reaction to that?
Yeah, it's absolute bullshit.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's my reaction.
Whoa.
This is the only way that the Democrats have to beat President Trump is to arrest him, smear him, charge him with ridiculous charges, all in a cover-up of Joe Biden's crimes, Hunter Biden's crimes. It's unbelievable. It's hard to even recognize that this is our country. The American people are going to be furious. And what Jack Smith is doing is the weaponized government. And he's weaponizing the Department of Justice against President Trump in a complete lie about President Trump and January 6th. And it's outrageous. I can't believe our country has to endure this. And I'll be standing with President Trump the entire way.
Have you spoken to him since this?
I have not spoken with him yet, but I'm sure I'll be talking with him very soon.
Given the fact that this is not the first time that he's been the target of these investigations, do you find this one to be more serious?
Yes, I find it to be more serious because the charges they're looking at bringing against him, they arrested people on January 6th. They held them pre-trial. They never let them out on bail. And is the question that I want to ask Jack Smith, is this the plan? Are they going to arrest President Trump, charge him with phony, fake charges, and then hold him in prison while he is winning the Republican primary, while he's going to win the general election in 2024? Is this where...
And a pause on this one, because we have to remember we're an entirely different jurisdiction in D.C. It's not Florida anymore. Judge Eileen Cannon, we know we've got a history with Judge Eileen Cannon. She was very favorable, or I would say reasonable, in the presumption of innocence and holding the Department of Justice accountable and not buying their default, everything we do is perfect standard. She pointed out a lot of problems that they had in their initial seizure of the documents. But then we translate the Trump defendant from a favorable jurisdiction in Florida back over to D.C., and the whole game changes. We've seen those judges on the Proud Boys cases, on the Oath Keepers cases, on many others that we've covered here. They hear the word Trump and they just start frothing at the mouth. I mean, the transcripts that we read are just, wow. Are you serious? Trump gets zero benefit of the doubt and gets exactly the opposite. I would say the presumption of guilt in many instances. There's almost a dripping disdain. So the idea that Stewart Rhodes is somebody who has been in custody this entire time since he was charged, as the DOJ says, the leader of the Oath Keepers, the leader of a seditious conspiracy. If he's been in custody and they want more than 18 years, they have already charged and sentenced him to 18 years, and the government is appealing that because it's not long enough. They keep screaming at us, no one's above the law. So if Trump is charged as the ultimate insurrectionists, how can they not keep him in custody? If they've been screaming at us that every single one of these other people are a danger to American democracy, it would almost not compute. And if you bring this in front of a judge in D.C., they might do it.
Our country is now, because it's an embarrassment on the world stage. If this is the direction America is going in, we are worse than Russia. We are worse than China. We are worse than some of the most corrupt third world countries. And this.
Yeah, because we scream democracy and everybody keeps saying we have free and fair elections. And this is just the law operating as normal. This is just Donald Trump getting his comeuppance for all of his crimes, and that the justice system is fair, even though we've seen it misapplied across the board. We have cocaine that is still missing in the White House, for crying out loud. That is one microcosm of a much broader problem with this. So we have questions about it. So does Marjorie.
It needs to end. It's an absolute lie. And every single time President Trump is proven innocent time and time and time again. And he'll be proven innocent again.
He hasn't had a trial, though, right, related to the last indictment.
He shouldn't have a trial related to the last indictment. This is ridiculous. The document hoax is nothing but a hoax. And now they're going to try to charge him with some kind of seditious conspiracy on January 6th. It's ridiculous. Saying march peacefully, go in peace to the Capitol. How is that seditious conspiracy? It's not. And there's nothing wrong with asking questions about elections. That is exactly what we should do. We should make sure that our elections are safe. We should make sure that we have election integrity. There's nothing wrong with saying, look into this. Was there election fraud?
Are you talking specifically about his conversations with officials in Georgia?
I'm talking specifically on every single level. He can ask, was there election fraud? I should be able to ask if there's election fraud.
But can he ask them to find a specific amount of votes?
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying there's nothing wrong with asking for election fraud. And yeah, he can say, hey, where are these votes? You want to know why? My ex-husband still has not heard from the Georgia Secretary of State of why, when he showed up to vote in person in 2020, he was told, I'm sorry, sir, you've already voted by absentee ballot. And he didn't. Then we were called liars. I was called a liar. He was called a liar. Then we had to hire an attorney, do a FOIA request, and prove that no, he never requested an absentee ballot. He never sent in an absentee ballot. He never voted by absentee. So why did the Georgia Secretary of State website have him voting by absentee? And he wasn't the only one. He stood in a line of people that all were told the same thing. And that was reported all over Georgia. There's nothing wrong with asking, hey, where are there some votes? What's going on here? What's happening with this?
Every single campaign that has ever run is always asking about the votes. Hey, we're down. What do you mean? Do we get the ones from that county? How about that county? What about those early ballots from County B? What about that district over there? Did they turn those in? I mean, when we sit here on election nights, and we've covered several of them now, we are waiting for the votes to come in. We're constantly asking, where are those votes? Where are those votes? We did it back in 2020 as well. So it is a process that is just normal and natural. But they say Trump does it. Are you serious that Hillary Clinton didn't ask about where the votes were in any one of the states she was losing in 2016? Give me a break. But they say that is now Trump causing pressure, causing corruption to twist and contort, crossing a criminal threshold by encouraging them to create and forge and be fraudulent in creating the votes. But Jack Smith's going to have to prove that case. And we're going to watch that. They're going to say that line is very different for Donald Trump. Other people can question votes. Other people can question elections, even like Jamie Raskin. But when Trump does it, it is now verboten.
Election, because clearly there was election fraud, and we still haven't heard an answer on it.
You said you haven't talked to the former president. Do you plan to talk to him today after this news?
I hope to talk to him soon to express how deeply sorry I am for him that the Democrats in Washington and the Department of Justice are weaponized against him because they can't figure out how to win. Democrats can't win on their policies. Their policies are open borders, baby murder, transgender surgeries for children, America last, America last, America last. 300 Americans dying every single day from fentanyl. You can't win an election when that's your policy.
What do you think?
Right. It's very difficult to win when your candidate is under 4 indictments by his number one opponent in America. But that is the current status. Maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene will co-sponsor Matt Gaetz's bill, and they can make an effort to defund Jack Smith. We'll see. That will have to make its way up to Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House. We're always curious what he has to say about this. Here is Kev.
Trump says he got a target letter from the January 6th prosecutor and says in 4 days he has to report to the grand jury. So do you have any reaction to this?
Well, I guess under a Biden administration, Biden America, you'd expect this. If you notice recently, President Trump went up in the polls and was actually surpassing President Biden for re-election. So what do they do now? Weaponize government to go after their number one opponent. It's time and time again. I think the American public is tired of this. They want to see equal justice, and the idea that they utilize this to go after those who politically disagree with them is wrong.
All right, so we'll see if he does anything about it, or if there is any more pressure that comes down to bear. Matt Gaetz leading the pack, saying that Congress must defund Jack Smith. We'll see if Congress takes action as we continue to cover. All right, now, why are they doing all of this? The Insurrection Clause strategy, the reason the Democrats very interested in prosecuting and convicting Donald Trump. Vivek gave us a little bit of a rundown on this. We'll check in with the other GOP candidates as well, including Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis. But this is a curious strategy that we've been following for some time here. Remember that the 14th Amendment has a very interesting provision in there called the Insurrection Clause. And Democrats have been wanting to use the Insurrection Clause to boot Donald Trump off of ballots. We were wondering when this was going to come into play, or how the January 6th Select Committee would come to a conclusion about why Donald Trump needs to be removed from the process, and they pass a continuing resolution or something, right? Some sort of internal procedure that is abstract that the House does. But this may not be happening at the federal level. This may be happening at the local state level. And so when we were covering this, we came across this guy named John Bonifaz. He's the co-founder of an organization called Free Speech for People, which is hilariously trying to remove people's ability to express themselves by keeping Donald Trump off the ballot so that people can't vote at all. So he had 2 comments about this, and they are actually already sending letters out to different states demanding Trump be removed from the ballots under the Insurrection Clause. And so this is already happening. But now that Trump is about to be indicted for J6, officially indicted for insurrection-y related crimes, we know this is going to go up times 1,000. And if he's actually convicted in any way, shape, or form, it's times 1,000,000, because they can say, look, he was convicted of the crime. But even now, if Trump is charged, they can just say, hold, we got to hold. We can't put Trump on the ballot until the case is resolved. And so he can't even be printed on the paper until the case is settled. And if the case is not settled in time for the election, that's not the state's fault. Trump shouldn't have been charged, and we can't have possible criminals on state ballots. So this was sent over to the Secretary of State by the Free Speech for People organization. We read through this whole thing in a different video, and so I'd invite you to watch that if you want to see it. But long story short, they're saying you as the Secretary of State have authority to exclude from any ballot any presidential candidate who does not meet qualifications, including under the Insurrection Clause under the 14th Amendment. And so just briefly, this is what the amendment actually says over from our friends at Cornell Law School. You'll find it in Section 3. It says, no person shall be a senator or elector of president or other office if they've already taken an oath as a member of an elected body, if that person here shall have engaged in insurrection. Congress may vote by 2/3 to remove the disability. And so that would be the federal government in Congress placing a conviction upon somebody through the courts, and then Congress removing the disability that was placed upon that person. And I don't expect that to happen. Okay, we're not getting 2/3 of the House or the Senate to agree to exonerate Trump. I don't think that is going to happen at all. So that is the status. And now this guy says the enforcement mechanism is very simple. All you've got to do is just get the secretaries of state to come to their own conclusions that this is okay to remove Trump. And if the DOJ actually charges him and indicts him on this, that is the pretext to keep him off the ballots. Here is this argument. Then we'll listen to Vivek.
There's nothing in the language of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment that requires, for example, a prior conviction or even a prior indictment or a tribunal of any kind having to rule before those who are in charge of regulating state ballots enforce Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. So we've been calling on secretaries of state and chief election officials all across the country to apply the mandate of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment based on their own authority to regulate the state ballot. So for example, Glenn, the Constitution does not allow a 15-year-old to run for president of the United States or to run for Congress for that matter. And any secretary of state who received a petition from a candidate of that age, and my daughter's that age, I think she'd be a great candidate, but anyone who received a petition to be on the ballot at that age for that kind of office would be automatically barred based on the Constitution, based on the age qualification. There's also a citizenship qualification, there's a residency qualification, and following the 14th Amendment, there's a qualification that you must have not taken an oath of office and then engaged in insurrection if you want to serve in public office. So the enforcement of this really goes to the secretaries of state and the chief election officials who are in charge of regulating state ballots. It's also true.
So they're going to try to do this. They're already trying to do it. And Vivek is sounding the alarm. Here's what he posted on Twitter in response to the Trump indictment. He said, "The left calls January 6th a threat to our democracy." Quote. But the ultimate threat is when politically unaccountable actors literally remove democratically elected officials from office. That's why the pending January 6th indictment of Trump is arguably the most dangerous of all to our constitutional republic. I believe the federal administrative police state is preparing to invoke the Insurrection Clause from Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to disqualify Trump from running in a way that past indictments technically would not. This isn't theoretical. New Mexico County Couy Griffin, who we've covered here, was removed from office after his election from being present at the Capitol, even though he was there and peaceful. That sets a dangerous precedent. States like New Mexico could do the same thing, try to keep Trump off the ballot, and a prosecution by Jack Smith would only strengthen their argument for doing so. It is un-American for the ruling party, Biden, and the Democrats to use police power to arrest its chief political rivals. We need to know what Biden told Garland and what Garland told Jack Smith. We should know whose invisible hand is guiding these indictments, which is why I filed a FOIA request, Freedom of Information, demand to uncover exactly what the White House communicated to Garland and Smith to target Biden's disfavored opponent in this election. Vivek says, we'll get to the bottom of it, including by suing in federal court if necessary. I will address this and how we will shut down this corrupt administrative state on Thursday when I'm in New Hampshire. Great statement from Vivek. Here is what he said.
To tell you the story of Couy Griffin. He was a democratically elected county commissioner in Otero County in New Mexico. Why am I telling you his story? Because he was elected, but he was removed from office. And it was held as a final removal from office by the New Mexico State Supreme Court this February, just days before I declared my own candidacy for U.S. president. Why was he removed? It was because the New Mexico courts held that he was an insurrectionist because he was present on January 6, 2021. Was he violent? No, he was not. Was he carrying a weapon? No, he was not. Did he enter the Capitol? No, he did not. But nonetheless, because he was present on the Capitol grounds that day, he was held to be an insurrectionist, even though he wasn't convicted for a felony or anything of the kind. There was a petition against him to remove him from office, and that's exactly what happened. Why?
Just a simple petition. Just get some signatures, file it, get a bunch of the other bureaucrats to say, yeah, get rid of him.
Do I bring that up? That's now relevant today, as it appears likely that Donald Trump will now be apparently indicted imminently, if the current facts reported today are to be believed, for his role in January 6th. What does that do? This is different from any of the other prior indictments against Trump, and people are missing the importance of this indictment in particular. Not only is this a federal indictment like the last one in the documents case, but more importantly, this one under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment could disqualify President Trump from either running for U.S. president or potentially even being removed as U.S. president if he is elected. I think this sets a dangerous precedent in our country. It's worth understanding the history here. Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution says that anyone who's taken an oath to office, a congressman, a senator, or a president, can be removed from office or disqualified from running for office if they've also engaged in an insurrection against the United States. So if it is held that President Trump did play a role in an insurrection against the U.S., that disqualifies him from being U.S. president under the 14th Amendment. In fact, the fact of bringing this prosecution against President Trump, if that does proceed, may even allow states like New Mexico to disqualify Trump from appearing on the ballot because they've already held in their state court system, all the way up to the New Mexico Supreme Court, as they did against Couy Griffin, that January 6th was indeed an insurrection. So even a 2-bit state court can disqualify him on the state ballot.
It's going to be a free-for-all, and there will be little skirmishes all across the country. And just like we talked about during the COVID pandemic, I'm having flashbacks. I'm sure many of you are too. We'll have little battles taking place unless the Supreme Court comes in and settles this. And is the Supreme Court going to settle something that is really within the purview of the various state legislatures? Remember, during the COVID era, we saw Democratic groups, many of them spearheaded by guys like Mark Elias, were filing lawsuits in various battleground states around this country, using COVID as the pretext to adjust the election in their favor, moving dates around, waiving signature requirements, extending collections, authorizing drop boxes, all the things. They got the election contorted in their favor. Now, they're going to do the same thing again. In this case, they're going to be filing petitions and other lawsuits to remove Donald Trump based on this new set of charges. And it will be, once again, a set of skirmishes in the various states. And we'll see what the judges do.
Say this as someone who is running against President Trump for the presidency in this election, in this GOP primary. I do not want to see my opponents eliminated because of the actions of a corrupt federal administrative police state. That is why I've said that if I'm elected, I will shut the FBI and other corrupt institutions down. But I don't want to get there by seeing my competition eliminated. That is not how our constitutional republic is supposed to function. We're not supposed to be a country where the party in power uses police force to indict and eliminate its political opponents. And yet now we're on the cusp of potentially a third indictment, which, unlike the last two, literally under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, could be invoked to eliminate my competition, President Trump, from holding office, and that is wrong. Yes, politically for me or any of the other candidates in the GOP primary, it would be easier if President Trump were eliminated. For many donors in the Republican primary base, this would be a moment of celebration. I think it is a moment of mourning in this country.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You mark my words as to why. What happened on January 6, 2021, I don't want to see that happen again in this country. But if we go down this road of weaponizing our justice system against disfavored political opponents, then January 6, 2021 will just be a preview of far worse to come. I don't want to see that happen.
No,
I don't want to see us march to a national divorce. I want to lead us to a national revival. And the only way we're going to get there is by confronting the ugly truth of the present itself. That's why I'm running for president. And that's why I will condemn this politicized prosecution and persecution against my opponent.
Right on. So an absolute banger from Vivek. He is, I think, dead right about this. I don't think they have any idea what they're doing or what the consequences of this will be. I think they live in a bubble there in Washington, D.C., and they glad hand amongst themselves, pat each other on the back, go to Subway together, and they indulge in the little antics of the meaning behind a Subway sandwich and walking around on CNN. And then, this is what they do. But I don't think they understand that there is another part of this country that doesn't see things the way that they see them and doesn't believe in the legitimacy of the DC establishment bureaucrats. And so what Vivek is talking about, as I think, is a long-term consequence of the failing legitimacy of these institutions. It's going to be not good for anybody. And these people, in their efforts to so-called save democracy, are really sowing the seeds of their own destruction and potentially the destruction of the current form of America. Because once you start prosecuting your political opponents, the pendulum swings both ways. There's a reason we haven't done this before in all of America's amazing history. And finally, we land at this moment in time, and we've got 4 indictments from these maniacs for conduct that is, by any measure, less serious than anything that Hillary Clinton did or what Joe Biden has even done, just on the mechanics of the law. And we can play that game all day. But the point is, Vivek is saying that this is corrupt. If he's elected, he's going to shut down the FBI. But as it stands now, what they're doing is hurting his political opponents. It is not to his benefit. It is actually a day for mourning in America. And I think he's right over the mark on that. Now, we have other candidates reacting because maybe the Insurrection Clause would serve them. Maybe it would benefit them if Trump's not on the ballot anymore, and maybe they just want to move on from it. So we had a little bit of a debate on Twitter today. Alex B posted this one. Brucewitz says Ron DeSantis just said that Trump should have come out more forcefully. And so there was this clip going around. It's 15 seconds.
Being brought up on criminal charges and doing things like, for example, I think it was shown how he was in the White House and didn't do anything while things were going on. He should have come out more forcefully. Of course, that difference between.
All right. So, and then this is the full clip, and you can be the judge. I'm not so sure it's really out of context, but here's the full clip.
First, you mentioned in your earlier answer, you talked about the criminalization of politics, but you also mentioned it wasn't about whether it's right or wrong. Do you think that former President Trump's actions were wrong on January 6th? And separately, do you think that gay and transgender people should serve openly in the military, on a separate topic?
Two questions.
Okay, so the second one, we said we're not going to do the transgender or the gender ideology, and that's a mission readiness. That had been the policy prior to Biden. He's changed it. He's included the sex change and all that. So we're going to go back to pre-Biden on the gender ideology for that. So look, there's a difference between being brought up on criminal charges and doing things like, for example, I think it was shown how he was in the White House and didn't do anything while things were going on. He should have come out more forcefully. Of course that. But to try to criminalize that's a different issue entirely.
Which is like one half of Liz Cheney's argument. So Liz Cheney says that he didn't do anything and that not doing anything was criminal. It's almost like gross negligence. You know, you sort of have to, you know, if you're a parent, you can't let your kid go kill themselves. If you do that, you're negligent. It's a dereliction of duty type of an argument, which is basically what Liz Cheney was saying. But he's not going that far. He's making more of an executive argument. So, you know, had I been there and if there was an insurrection-ish, that maybe I would have done something differently. It's just a difference of style. It's a difference of leadership. It's a difference of response. You know, it's those things, but it doesn't take itself into the criminal realm. So it's.
And I think that we want to be in a situation where, you know, you don't have one side just constantly trying to put the other side in jail. And that unfortunately is what we're seeing now. So there's, again, someone had whispered this to me, so I'm sure I'll have a chance to look at this in the future, depending on the developments, but I
okay, so
what I was going to do. Okay, well, thank you all.
So Ron did have some time to think about that. He was on with Jake Tapper today, and Jake Tapper asked him about this during an exclusive interview, and here's what he said.
This country is going down the road of criminalizing political differences, and I think that's wrong. Alvin Bragg stretched a statute in Manhattan to be able to try to target Donald Trump. Most people, even people on the left, acknowledge if that wasn't Trump, that case would not have likely been brought against a normal civilian. And so you have a situation where the Department of Justice, FBI, have been weaponized against people they don't like. And the number one example of that happened to be against Donald Trump with the Russia collusion. That was not a legitimate investigation. That was being done to try to drive Trump out of office. And so what I've said as president, my job is to restore a single standard of justice.
Okay, so we'll just pause on that just quickly. And I agree with him. I think that was done to drive Trump out of office. But so we're clear, that was by the same Department of Justice. Okay, that's the same entity that's doing this right now.
To end weaponization of these agencies, we're going to have a new FBI director on day one. We're going to have big changes at the Department of Justice.
Okay.
Americans across the political spectrum need to have confidence that what is going on is based on the rule of law, not based on what political tribe you're in.
All right, so that's Ron DeSantis. I'd like to hear a little bit more about what his take is on this January 6th stuff. We know the Russia thing was a collusion hoax proffered by them. Does he think this is legitimate? We'll see. I guess we all need to wait and see until the charges come out. But here is Nikki Haley. She doesn't really want to wait and see. She kind of wants to just get this whole thing done and over with. She's tired of the distractions. let's get back to the issues. It's not even that important.
Keep on going. I mean, the rest of this primary election is going to be, in reference to Trump, is going to be about lawsuits. It's going to be about legal fees. It's going to be about judges. And it's just going to continue to be a further and further distraction. We can't keep dealing with this drama. We can't keep dealing with the negativity.
What? So obviously, I don't think it's going to be about.
In reference to Trump, it's going to be about lawsuits. It's going to be.
No, it's not lawsuits. These are criminal charges.
About legal fees. It's going to.
Not really about legal fees. That was from E. Jean Carroll. Those were civil cases where Trump's going to be paying his attorneys, presumably. I mean, those legal fees, we're not talking about verdicts like in the terms of monetary damages. We're talking, Trump had to pay E. Jean Carroll, $5 million. Okay. We're not worried about that. We're worried about, 20 years in prison. Stuff like that. So it's kind of a big deal. What else?
It's going to be about judges, and it's just.
Yeah, we do have questions about judges, the D.C. judges that have been perverting justice. Are we allowed to talk about that? I think justice is a pretty important topic.
It's going to continue to be a further and further distraction. We can't keep dealing with this drama. We can't keep dealing with the negativity.
It's not drama.
She obviously wants to get to the issue. She doesn't want this all to be about the Trump indictments, but
it's not about even Trump's conduct. It's about the weaponization of the DOJ and the FBI and the Biden administration against Trump, against his political opponent.
I mean, you got to wonder at some point, voters become inured to all of this. It's like, how many indictments can a former president and a current presidential candidate face before people say, you know what? Maybe it doesn't matter.
They don't.
Yeah.
They're illegitimate.
I think there are really two sides of this, and this is where this election is going to be played out on the GOP primary side. And that is the people who say, you know what, I really liked Trump policies, but I just don't like the chaos. I don't like the baggage. And that's what Nikki Haley is trying to tap into. You're likely going to see Ron DeSantis and Mike Pence and others tap into that. But then there's another side that says, listen, why are they going after him so hard? Why are they doing this?
Why?
To this former president who we liked his policies. We had some problems with him personally, maybe. But why are they doing it? Because maybe, this is their thinking, he's shaking things up and bringing down the swamp and changing Washington. And that's why they're going after him. And at least that's what they say publicly. And I think that's where the battle of this GOP primary is going to be.
All right. Think he's going to show up on the 23rd?
You know what? He says he's thinking about it. I bet the spotlight is pretty big. And that's a lot of viewers.
All right. So these two goofballs trying to figure out what is happening out there in America. I think a lot of people are motivated by the fact that Donald Trump offered an alternative solution. He beat them at their own game. They're the biggest sore losers and bullies that this country has ever seen. He never even got a legitimate shot at having a fair shake at doing his job when he was elected because he was dogged by the Democrats at every turn. They undermine him and they have turned him into this alleged criminal for conduct that is so far beneath the other criminal conduct that we've seen out of these other so-called leaders. It is just laughable. So the double standards, the bullying, and the fact that Trump never even got a fair opportunity are what are motivating people. And the fact that the DOJ is now what feels like an extension of the Democratic Party is not something that people want to live with in this country. So they are, my belief is, going to rally even harder around Donald Trump. The more they try to remove him, the more the energy will coalesce to support him. And of course, we will continue to cover as we watch this case develop. And we hope you subscribe and join us as we do. All right, my friends. Now, to wrap it up, we've got an update. And here is the latest. I just did a check on it, and we don't have a new order. So there is no new update. Donald Trump judge Eileen Cannon in the classified documents case out of Florida, apparently skeptical of the December trial date. We know Jack Smith wants to get this trial done quickly because if it goes too far, it's going to go right into election season, and Trump is going to have justification for postponing the trial until after 2024. And so they were in court today. Walt Nauta, when he was walking out here, people were screaming epithets at him. They were calling him names. And so make sure you stick around and we'll hit that near the end of this segment. But first, we know that the trial date is still uncertain. When is Judge Cannon going to schedule this proceeding. Now, we know that it's currently scheduled for August, which is just a stone's throw away, and December is pretty soon. There's a bunch of classified procedures that they've got to go through in order to comply with the rules and the law. But after December, now we get into election season because Iowa has their primary caucus right there in January. So this article came out from Zoe Tillman. She writes for Bloomberg, and she was there on scene in Florida. She said that a federal judge didn't immediately set a trial date. We're waiting for the date, man, but expressed skepticism about arguments from both the government and the former president's lawyers. The judge is Judge Eileen Cannon. In a closely watched pretrial hearing on Tuesday, said that she would issue the order after the hearing to address the first fight between the prosecutors. The government wants the trial in December. Former president, they don't want it any date set for now. They say setting a schedule for the coming months, a relatively uncontroversial step, has major consequences for Trump. He's got a campaign. The trial date in Florida is only one of several legal obligations. We know others are piling up. At the proceeding, Cannon signaled some skepticism about Trump's arguments about his 2024 campaign schedule and the political climate, talking about publicity. Not sure that those are reasons to delay setting a trial until after the election. We'll see. Now, she told Trump's lawyers to focus their push for a longer timeline on the volume of evidence. All right. She's saying, I don't really want to hear about the election problems or about the publicity stuff. I want to know about the due process. How quickly can you review the evidence? Why do you need more time to review the evidence? Make arguments and justifications on that basis, and maybe I'll consider them. The complexity of issues related to the materials and the scope of pretrial arguments. She says that's a much more suitable framework to guide my scheduling decisions. All right. So remember, when we read the Trump motion for this, there was a section in there where Trump's team was even saying, hey, we're busy. We've got trials. Trump's got campaigning and all that stuff. She doesn't want to hear about that. She just wants to hear about the actual discovery going back and forth, because that's going to give her a basis to extend the case. But the judge also suggested she had concerns about the government's date. So they want to really hurry this thing up lest they lose their opportunity. At one point, she asked the lead prosecutor, Jay Bratt. She said, are there any previous cases involving classified information that unfolded on such a compressed timetable, is what she said. She said that she had to leave enough time to resolve all motions and all of the defenses that the defense wants to raise. Upcoming legal challenges include an October trial on Trump's state fraud allegations, a January 15th trial date on defamation from E. Jean Carroll, and a March trial date over hush money allegations for 2016 campaigns. Trump announced he got another target date on True Social. At the proceeding, Trump attorney Chris Keese made clear on Tuesday that the defense didn't believe that they could be ready for trial or that a fair jury could be selected before the 2024 election. He said, Judge, there's a high level of publicity surrounding this case. She said, yeah, but you guys need a more concrete proposal for the timetable. Like, give me a schedule. Trump attorney Todd Blanche argued, he said, the parties, how about we provide a status update in November after we've had time to review all of the evidence? So he says, we'll come back in a couple months and let you know. Then we can schedule motions in December. If the court needed to set a trial date, it should consider one of the weeks after the 2024 election, right after. Because if Trump wins the election, then he just turns around, pardons himself, these federal cases are gone. Or, you know, just disbands them, okay? He controls the DOJ. You're done. In asking for the December trial, prosecutors disputed that the case involved novel issues. They said, no, this is all pretty straightforward. And they objected to Donald Trump and his request for continuances. Trump's team, Blanche, said that it was disingenuous for the government to ask the court to treat Trump as the same as other defendants. And this is what Raskin said. Well, nobody's above the law. They're all the same. if we give Trump a continuance on this, then every person who's charged with a crime is just going to start running for president. But Trump's lawyer said no. The simple reality is that Trump's campaign, and there's many other legal entanglements, and this is just the nature of the defendant. You got to take the defendant as they come. Prosecutor David Harbach for the government said that courts had managed to seat juries for politicians and movie stars and corporate executives. Now we just have to have more careful vetting, not a big deal. They say Trump should be treated just like everybody else. And they push back on the idea that this case is being governed by politics. They say, oh no, any idea of this is just flat out false. There has been no political bias, none. All right, if you believe that for a minute. So that is the update on what happened in Eileen Cannon's courtroom. Anna Bauer, also from Lawfare, was there reporting. She said, hello, I'm here in court in Fort Pierce, Florida. I'm here for Lawfare to cover the classified documents case. Among the agenda items, we're talking about the delay. Here's a scene from the courthouse. The Alto Lee Adams Sr. United States Courthouse. She was there bright and early. And you can see all of the other people who showed up in attendance. We had CNN was there. Reuters was there. CBS, they all signed a line form. And there was some more updates from Miss Bauer, who was actually there. She said the following. During a 2-hour hearing, Cannon peppered both the defense counsel and prosecutors with questions about the anticipated discovery in the motion practice timeline. But she put off setting a trial date, indicating that she's going to enter a written order soon. She expressed skepticism about the DOJ's claim that they could do this trial by December 11th. It's not unusually complex. She repeatedly noted she's unaware of any case involving classified info that went to trial in 6 months. She's like, I've never seen that before. But Cannon also resisted arguments from Trump's team. They said, just reconsider. He's a Republican frontrunner. She said, let's focus on discovery. That matters most. Walt Nauta also appeared alongside his attorneys. They were there. Stanley Woodward and Sasha Dayden were present. Woodward argued that setting a firm trial date is unrealistic. He says, I've got to review discovery before I can even advise Nauta about whether he should sever his trial from Trump's. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Currently, they are co-defendants. But if there's a conflict that develops between Trump and Nauta, that could be a problem. Like if the government comes to Nauta and they say, hey, we'll give you a probation plea deal, but you've got to turn and testify against Trump. If you don't, then we're going to charge you with the maximum penalty and we're going to ask for a decade in prison. What would you like to do? If there becomes a conflict here, then we'll see where that goes. But then whether this can be, and actually this is going to be for the trial, so whether they could sever the trial and just proceed entirely differently. It's good. We've got a lot of runway left on this path. So more, she says, the Justice Department indicated it had only recently been able to conduct a more thorough search of Walt Nauta's phone. Prosecutor Jay Bratt indicated that a complete search required special software that took the DOJ months to acquire. Gosh, these people are just the worst. Okay, so that's what's happening over there in court. And we know that Walt Nauta, when he was exiting the courtroom, he got some language thrown his direction. So this was the scene. Trump and Walt's lawyers exit the Alto Lee Adams Senior Courthouse in Florida, and Judge Cannon is going to be issuing a written ruling. And so another content warning on this one. So we see, there's Walt. People are yelling at him. Or one guy's yelling at him. Yeah, there's their signs over there.
Spread out, spread out, spread out. Guys, excuse me. Excuse me.
right, so they're screaming out over there, and you can see that they're loading up into the car. And I think we saw a couple of Trump's lawyers right there at the outset. Christopher Keese and Todd Blanche. I think that is one of them here. I think that's Keese. So that is the latest update. Now, we are still waiting on a ruling from the court. This is the latest on the docket. Let's see if there's anything that's dropped recently, and the answer is no. So when the court does drop the new trial date, we will, of course, continue to cover it, my friends. It's going to be just one part of many other Trump indictments that we'll be covering here. Hopefully you are subscribing wherever it is you're watching this and joining us as we continue to cover this, because there will be a lot more. And thank you for joining up at robertgovea.com to sign up for our brand new, fresh newsletter to get daily show notes and access to this mind map if you want to follow along and peruse the documents at your leisure. We'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends. Well, that was it for the day. We covered a lot of Trump ground, and it's just going to be getting started. So Trump's going to have a little bit of a hiatus over these next 4 days or so. Probably won't see much activity, may still see some more leaks, but at some point there will be an indictment dropping. Might be over the weekend, might be on a Monday. It's going to be coming soon, and we're going to continue to cover it. We know that they're going to be trying to use this Insurrection Clause strategy as well. Congress saying that maybe they should do something like, defunding Jack Smith or taking some other sort of power of the purse activity. And Trump is responding to this with his Truth Social post. I'm sure he'll have much more to say. But now, my friends, it is time to hear from you and to see what you have to say about this from our friends on Twitter, on Locals, on Rumble, on YouTube, all over the other places. But my friends, also, don't forget what happened to... Oh, I see what's going on here. Yes, do we have people on our mind map? Do we have anybody browsing around on the mind map? So, my friends, as I said, an announcement. New website, robertgovea.com. There are reports on the various segments, so you can read through the videos, read through the reports on the video, and you can also learn how to use the mind map with a mind map tutorial. Sign up for a free account, Robert Govea. Or you don't need a free account. Just go to robertgovea.com. Just sign up for it, for the newsletter. It will come right through in your inbox. And so, let's see. We had a couple super chats that came in today. That one was from Voice of the People. Starting the show out. Hey, Dolphin fan is the man, is in the house. Brought in 5 new membos. Amazing. So just my opinion. Garrett Pace, Kevin Hopper, Natasha M, and Mark Gangler, all gifted membos, courtesy of our friend Dolphin fan is the man. Thank you very much, Dolphin fan. And hey, our new members, don't forget to grab the Telegram link in the community section on YouTube so you can join us for our after party. We'd love to see you there. Also, who else do we have in the house? We got Voice of the People. Woo, baby. We got 10 membos coming in from Voice. Thank you, Voice. So Alex G, Full-Time, Waffles for the People, Magoose, James B, Tyler G, Unsound E, Mama Rocks, Harley G, and Joshua G, all coming in courtesy of Voice of the People. New members. We love our new members. We try to deliver for our members. We do member-only morning streams where we get to go in and have some fun. A little bit more, intimate than we do here on the show. And so come and join us. But it's not, not that intimate, so don't get carried away. All right, FMF Doc says Jack Smith fomenting for footlongs. Yeah, CNN was a little bit excited about that, Don't really know what that was all about. But they were really spending a lot of time on the footlong thing. Hey, this one is from 2012. Jameson, what's up, Jameson? Says fitness is not woke. So not only lose the weight, shed the woke, and get healthy with Field of Greens. That is how it's done. Fitness is not woke. That's right. I think if you exercise, I think the Democrats are saying that that's right-wing extremism or something like that. If you lift weights, you bench press, you're going to steal democracy. Ooh, So thank you, 2012 Jameson. Got to move and eat well. Good comment. We love that fitness. Thank you for that, 2012. Hey, Robin K joining us as a member on YouTube. Big welcomes to Robin K. Welcome aboard. We're glad to have you. We had another one from Al. Hey, Al, joining as a member. Al F is in the house. Looks like a beautiful family photo there. Welcome aboard, Al. We're glad to have you. We have Michael Allen Hughes says, if Trump gets locked up, can he appeal it? Yeah, he could. If he was actually, you could appeal. He could appeal. It's like a special action. He could appeal one particular ruling in a criminal case, and so challenge the order. I mean, basically, he would go through the regular filing. So, like, he would go at the initial appearance, the arraignment. The judge would issue release conditions, and there would be arguments at that proceeding. And then, if based on whatever that order was, he could request a rehearing. He could appeal that up, but he would sit in custody basically the entire time. So he would be in custody. All right. Like, it's not a good plan. You want to avoid that. Michael Allen Hughes says, funny timing, just like clockwork. Wag the dog. Yeah, very interesting timing. We've got a huge hearing that's been planned for weeks, and all of a sudden Trump gets indicted again. Michael Allen Hughes says, will Trump be able to bail out if he's arrested? Again, that depends on the judge. Like, the Proud Boys didn't get bail. They were too dangerous. Bunch of J6ers are not out on bail. They are non-bondable. And if Trump is the leader of the insurrection, how can they allow him to get out of custody is the real question. Is that even possible? Another one from Jameson. Thank you, Jameson. Says, how does history and tradition Bruin apply to insurrection? Hint, only insurrection was civil war, one of the bloodiest wars in U.S. history. Well, that's true, Jameson, but Joe Biden said that J6 was the second bloodiest war, I guess, in America, or the worst war since American history. The worst attack on American democracy since the Civil War. That's their language, not mine. They forgot about Pearl Harbor. They forgot about 9/11. They think that January 6th was worse than both of those because they're psychopaths. All right. So thanks, Jameson. Salty says, sorry, but the footlong was 6 inches and Big Mike is an extra medium. Okay. Yeah, Big Mike. Yeah, I think we know who you're talking about there. I'm not sure what they're into over there at CNN or what Jack Smith's into or what. They have weird names for food, and the food names mean different things, and weird stuff's going on. So I don't know what exactly they're talking about, but there was like 4 people who were all very excited about Jack Smith eating footlongs, whatever that is for. All right, Alberto Candelaria's in the house with a poop emoji, which is appropriate for today's topic. Indictments are poopy. Voice of the people. Voice, thank you, says, I really don't like Marjorie Taylor Greene, but I do feel sorry for the woman. I've seen 73 articles smearing her last week alone because that woman has more balls than most of the men in the GOP. Yeah, it's like sometimes Marjorie is dead on and sometimes Marjorie is like dead off. There are sometimes I'm like, oh gosh, really the budget. I remember the budget thing. When she came out, she's like, McCarthy, budget, America. I was like, how could you be so wrong? And then some other times she comes out and she's like, this is total BS. I'm like, yeah, that's true. I agree with that. That is representative of my feeling. Thanks, Marjorie. So yeah, she is getting skewered. I have seen a lot of those articles because she kind of, feels like she's playing both sides a little bit, but it's Marjorie. What can you do? Pickle Jars for Hillary says, didn't impeach 2.0 clear Trump of January 6th? Well, they didn't remove him. There wasn't enough for removal, but the House did impeach him. So he wasn't removed. So like he was impeached. I mean, the House did impeach him, but the Senate didn't remove him. So I think that the argument would be for the Democrats, no, that he was, I mean, they say all the time he was twice impeached. So from their, like the question from their perspective would be, they say that impeachment 2.0 convicted Trump. So it's just a matter of perspective, I guess, is the way to answer that one. Salty Sarge says the media is the deep state's mean girl crew, badger the hell out of you and verbally beat you down. And yeah, brainwash you just over and over and over, gaslight you into thinking that you're living in a bizarre reality. Good to see you, Salty Sarge. Thank you for that one. Jameson says 14th Amendment is subject to due process rights versus privilege. So a 15-year-old has not had the right conferred. A 35-year-old has for president. Yeah, and I think he was given the age limit as an example. And so he was saying that just like a Secretary of State person would never allow a 26-year-old to run for president, they would never allow an insurrectionist to run for president either. And that was his example. But that if you extend that to the end of logic, then that person has total authority about who gets on or off the ballot. And just like they did with Couy Griffin, they just throw him right off. And he's got no recourse. So Pickle Jars for Hillary says Dems took Lincoln off the ballot and lost that war. So maybe that's a foreboding of future things to come. I don't know. We got Lay says, can we write Trump in on the ballot? And welcome, Lee. First one from you here on our channel. Amazing. Thanks for being here, and thanks for having the courage to send in a super chat. I know it's kind of scary to jump in the chat sometimes. If you're new to a chat, you're like, oh, these people are all like, they all know each other and they're all conversating with one another. How do I jump in there? And so big shout outs to all the newbies in the chat, everybody who jumps in, all the lurkers. Shout out to the lurkers. And Lay is no longer a lurker. First super chat says, can we write Trump in on the ballot? Of course, yeah, I mean, of course you could. The problem with that, though, is that those write-in campaigns are very small in margin. If you're just not on the ballot, people just are not. You're not going to get a threshold of people to win. Generally, people would rather just any bit of friction. It'd have to be a very successful write-in campaign. But then I think even if you wrote him in, they would still remove him. They would just say that vote is invalid because these people are censors. Anyways, good comment. Thank you for that. And thanks for being here, Lay. We got Devin Knox says, didn't they have an actual permit for the J6 protests? Many of them did. Yeah, many of them did. The FBI was monitoring them. They had lists of people in their reports about how many people, where they were supposed to be, how they were supposed to stay within designated areas, and so on. And Trump told them to go peacefully and didn't say anything that Democrats haven't ever said. But he is Trump, and he is MAGA, so therefore he's got to go to jail. Thanks, Devin. This one's from Salty. Says, state legal battles. If their judiciary is corrupt, they're going to pass anything they want. Get your standing and lose your latches now. Yeah, exactly right. We saw this already happen in 2020. They were colluding amongst themselves. The court said, well, it is an emergency. It is COVID. And they were taking executive power. They were expanding it massively and usurping the power of the legislature right out from under them. And we saw what happened. So the same thing might happen again. This time it's just, the first opportunity was covert against Trump. It was using COVID as an excuse to justify the electoral landscape. This time it will be overt. They'll just say Trump's an insurrectionist. Got to go. So good to see you, Salty. Alberta Traficante says, can we fight fire with fire and petition to have Biden removed if he makes it to the primary? Well, you'd have to make some argument that he was insurrecting America. So maybe if there was enough evidence that he was doing a quid pro quo, being bribed, maybe that's disloyalty to America. He was colluding with China. That's sort of insurrectionary. Everything's an insurrection. Therefore, Joe Biden committed insurrection. Therefore, Joe Biden should also be removed under the 14th Amendment. That's one argument. Will the Republicans do it? Doubt it. But certainly they could. The Republicans could demand every single Secretary of State do the same thing. Joe Biden's corrupt and he's in violation. He's insurrecting America with his China deals. Will they? Nah. Fred Pedamonte says the Revolutionary War started over the Tax Stamp Act, 1765, and no representation with constant overreach and more taxes. This is far worse than that. It's getting very, very, very bad indeed. Fred, thank you for that. We got Jameson says, is a coup an insurrection? I think they're kind of interchangeable now, according to them. Says Pelosi, watch out. She was waiting for this, remember? I was waiting for this. Pickle Jar says, when does the statute of limitations end for January 6th? It depends what they charge. So it's all connected to the criminal charges. But for a while, I mean, probably the earliest 5 years, 7 years. So they got plenty of time on that one. This one is from Horatio. Welcome, Horatio. And thank you for this one. This is the pair exercising, which is one of the best gifts out there because we all need our exercise. And thank you, Horatio, for that. And thank you for V for clipping that for us. Curtis Bartle also brought in some new membos. Frank B, Russell W, TN Vol, Heather F is in the house along with Villainy F. Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. And thank you, Curtis, for inviting 5 new members to our amazing community. Man, we're going to have a pretty nice member chat tomorrow. It's going to be pretty lively with all these new members. So don't forget to join us. We do members-only morning streams. We love our members and welcome aboard. Hey, Southern Comfort says, thank you for sharing common sense to all of us with the heart. Thank you, Southern Comfort. Thanks for being a member. And thanks for being here and joining in as we go through this madness. There will be a lot more of it, no doubt. Teresa became a member. Teresa K in the house. Welcome aboard, Teresa K. Hopefully you'll hang out for a while. Hey, Marco Kungla also gifted 5 memberships. Man, tomorrow's going to be lit, baby. Gloria S, Cindy D, Pickle Jars for Hillary, and Kaiser and Tommy B. All gifted membos courtesy of Marco. And so, man, thank you guys for all the memberships. The community's growing, and hopefully you're enjoying the member-only stuff. We're working hard on bringing some new features. We've got the new newsletter out, the new reports out. Hopefully you enjoy those. And I appreciate your feedback on all of them. This one is from Voice of the People. Says Wall Street Journal, a couple of Pelosi's own. Look it up, guys. Wall Street Journal, a coup of Pelosi's own. Look it up, guys. That's from Voice of the People. I thought that was reference to another comment, but okay. So look it up. Wall Street Journal, a coup of Pelosi's own. Look it up. I will take a look at that. Thank you, Voice. I appreciate you being here. And Crash sent this one in over on Locals. Says, Rob, either the Dems are dipsticks or absolutely evil. Do they understand that they're stirring up a hornet's nest? I think they might want that to happen. It's a cause and effect situation. I'm sure there are feds salivating all over this country right now, waiting for something to happen, if not instigating something to happen, so they can pin it on Trump. Like it might actually be part of the plan, So be careful out there, my friends. There are feds everywhere. We also have our friends on Twitter. Let's say hello to our friends on Twitter before we go over to our Locals members only after party. Who do we have over here? We have anybody watching on Twitter? 8 viewers? Oh my goodness, we're almost at 10, baby. We're almost at 10. 10 viewers. When that happens, Twitter's going to have to get some new servers, I think. Who's here? We got Fred Pedamonte. Says the 2020 election was the cleanest and most secure election in United States history. That's from his dog, Johnny. Now, take that with a grain of salt. We know Johnny hung out with Jeffrey Epstein a lot. Danny says they're doing this so that they can enact martial law, right? That's another good thing. People get upset about it. They say, oh, we're under attack by Trump. Trump should be in prison. Everybody else should be in prison. We can see where it's going. V says Washington, D.C. is the baboon trap, where all the stronger, meaner baboons found some meat they wouldn't let others have. Then they all died because it was laden with bovine tuberculosis. That sounds like a bad situation. It says the first clue that you're dealing with tyrants is that you get persecuted for asking questions. And we're definitely thick in that stage. V says, once again, Rob, there are no pendulums in political theater. There are only wrecking balls. Matthew Reese says Vivek for Veep. And I think that's a good comment. This one from Troublemaker Jonah says the 14th Amendment says electoral president and not the office of the president, as in they're claiming false electors. So the president is not even included in the 14th Amendment. Am I wrong? I think when I read it, I think they're saying it was like the elector, like the result of the electors. I understand what you're asking, but I think that they're referring to the president. But it is worded a little bit strangely. But I think if you interpreted it, it would be the president. Hey, Matthew Reese says, I said this yesterday, but 2016 was a failed coup. Great point on that one. And Because is here, says, woohoo, caught you live. Keep the good work coming. I've been using the mind map to create my family's tree going back to 1686. How cool is that? Man, that's cool. I would love to do something like that for my family. How cool. Thanks for the recommendation. Great app. Yeah, and so certainly, my friends, check that out. You can go over to robertgovea.com and you can sign up for the mind map. You can get access to the daily mind map. You'll also get an email every day after the show with the show notes and access to the different reports. And this is a great place where you can read about stuff that's going on. So like, if you don't actually want to watch the full video, you can click the website and just read the report. In this one, we talked about the need for a special counsel. Ted Cruz was in this one. And it's a nice summary of the video over at robertgovea.com. And you can just sign up right here, get instant access to the mind map. And literally, like, you can hop on this exact mind map. Let's see, is anybody here on it? Oh, I can't see it. I'm too zoomed in. But you get the point. So come and check it out. robertgovea.com is the new address. And we would love to see you there. Old website is going to be going away. But okay, my friend. Hey, we had a couple other comments come in. Richard E. Moe says, under the Presidential Records Act, Trump has unfettered access rights to his presidential paper. To share these with staff and to release publicly, the prosecutors have no right to violate. I actually agree with this, and I actually think it's one layer deeper than the Presidential Records Act. I think it's the opinion clause in Article 2 that gives him constitutional power over the opinions of any writings that come from any executive department into his possession. And I don't think Congress, through the Presidential Records Act, through some statute, can supersede the presidential opinion power, which is in Article 2, nestled nicely in between the pardon power and the commander-in-chief power, which are both exclusive presidential powers. The opinion clause is the sole power of the presidency. This prosecution is illegal. Indoctrination says martial law starts the Civil War, and I guarantee most of the military will be on the right side. And I don't even want to think about, bloodshed between our fellow citizens at all. Hopefully this stuff is done peacefully and patriotically, but I think your point is probably valid nonetheless. All right. And so that, my friends, is it for us on the day. Man, what a doozy of a day. And look, I know these days can be stressful. I know this news can be troublesome. I know it feels like it is doom and gloom all of the time. And I'd encourage you, if it is too much, to unplug. I'll be, one of those channels that says if this is too much, I'd encourage you to not watch us for a little bit of time. But I also want to leave with a message of optimism, because I think this stuff is necessary before we are able to root out all of this evil monstrosity in our government. We have to see it. Trump is a unique historical figure, maybe the only person in this whole stinking world who has the capacity to handle this burden and go through this gauntlet and carry the mental fortitude to expose it all. I really don't know that there's anybody else who could go through something like this. He can. And it's going to be necessary to root out all of the bad actors involved. We're going to get to see them. We're going to get to see their case. We're going to get to see where a lot of our political people lie on this. And the exposure is going to do more to bring people to our way of thinking than anything else that they could possibly do. So it's going to backfire on them bigly. Our side is going to win. Their side is going to fail because they are censors, they are cheaters, and they are bullies, and nobody likes that. Even Democrats don't like that. They're going to get sick of their own side when they keep promising them victory and they keep delivering them failure. So hang tight, my friends. I know it is a long road ahead, and I know these days can be tiresome, but we are going to win. I'm not worried about that. And so thanks for sticking with us as we continue to cover this stuff. We are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only after party, and we would love to see you join us. If you don't forget to grab the new newsletter, robertgovea.com. We'd love to meet you in your inbox, and it's a great way to stay connected in case something happens to me or to this channel, thanks to our YouTube censors. All right, so watchingthewatchers.locals.com is where it will be. Also, don't forget to grab your Field of Greens over at fieldofgreens.com. You can save 15% off with code Robert when you check out. And hey, look, we've got some people in the mind map. All right, so we see these little people up here. Hey, welcome aboard. They're poking around on the mind map, and I'm not sure what they're poking around at. But you can browse around. You can search on this mind map. So you can say you want to search for Byron Donalds, or let's say you're into some Alina Abba. Do we have Abba in the house? Well, we got no results for her. What happened? We have not talked about Abba in July. All right, well, we'll have to see. Anyways, you get the point. You can search for stuff. It's a lot of fun. So robertgovea.com. Check out the new website. And my friends, before we wrap it up, we want to say thanks to the mods and the meme smiths who mod down the fort for us. And thanks to everybody who clipped away for us, including Vienticus Prime, our friend K-Bean, Just Cause, Playin' Hooky in the house, Ronnie Cole, Zulu. We got Beyond Geo, Zach Nichols, John Allen, our friend Janek909, Dog Digger, and Donut Mind Me, all in the house. Our meme smiths, Sleepy Dog Lee, Geegum Geegum, and Nathan N810. We appreciate you modding the fort down for us. And hey, Salty Sarge said, Jumpin' Jack Flash, it's a gas, gas, gas. Is that a song or poetry? It has interesting alliteration and a little bit of a rhyme to it. Thank you, Salty Sarge. Somebody says it's the Stones, and somebody says it's Jumpin' Jack Flash. It's a great movie. All right, so there you go. I hadn't seen that one. Jumpin' Jack Flash. It's a gas, gas, gas. All right, I gotta bone up on my music. I guess Rolling Stones is what YouTube is saying. All right, yeah. A little bit before my time, a little bit, but it still is the Rolling Stones. But I just don't, I wouldn't get it. Anyways, you get the point. Anyway, so thank you to our meme smiths. Now, my friends, we are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only after party. YouTube members, grab the Telegram link, join us on Telegram so you can join us there. Members will also be back here tomorrow for our members only stream. But if I don't see you at either of those places, we will be right back here tomorrow to do it all again. I'm sure there will be more fallout from the Trump prosecution. But remember, we also have the whistleblower testimony tomorrow. So Congress will be in session with both Mr. X and Gary Shapley. We are not going to be covering it live, but we will assemble all of the highlights on the show in addition to Trump updates and other news that's percolating. So my friends, thank you for subscribing, and thank you for joining us right back here tomorrow at the same time, so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. We're going to be back here tomorrow. We're going to do it all again. I'll see you then. Make it a great night. Bye-bye.